Hello everyone, you're watching New World News. I'm Jamie Starr. On this episode, I'm going to address a group of douchebags that are continually on my YouTube. I continually get recommended, view this video from the Young Turks, and these guys are the most obnoxious, arrogant, egomaniacal, nose in the air group of wannabe newscasters I've ever seen. You know you're bad if NBC doesn't even want to keep you on their show. I believe that's where Cenk was on NBC. But they basically just bring up stuff and scoff at it and go, isn't this ridiculous? Look at these people. They're so crazy. So I haven't even pulled out clips. I'm so sure that these guys are going to let their arrogant douchebag qualities just permeate through every video that I'm just going to live go through some of these, and we're going to pick it apart piece by piece. So did a search for them on YouTube, and the first one that catches my thing: the insane reason Marco Rubio bought a gun on Christmas. Now, one of the things I think we can assume from their stance on every issue that they think, and another video where Steven Crowder went through and debunked Cenk's whole view on the Second Amendment. Because of already knowing that bit of knowledge, you know that they think anyone who has a gun is insane for some reason or other. And here's the great irony of this all. Things that are actual classified mental disorders, like homosexuality, transsexuality, and stuff, they promote that, and they encourage everyone else to take on this idea that things that we view as mental disorders are perfectly normal, should be encouraged, should be celebrated, and everything like that. Whether you think it is or it isn't, that's irrelevant, because as far as text-wise, institutional-wise, academia-wise, medical-wise, it is. So, whether you want to go around changing the definitions to fit your political agenda, that's your own deal. But these people are insane because they think it's someone else's responsibility to take care of your personal safety. They think it's government's, and that's why they bow at the altar of government. So let's check out this first video. We'll see where they go with this story.
Style lets you stand out from the herd. What's inside
Have
sets
to mind
you
the
apart.
commercial here.
The 2016 Cadillac Escalade.
Marco Rubio recently appeared on Face the Nation on CBS, and he was asked about a curious purchase he made on Christmas Eve. Take a look.
There's been a lot of people buying firearms recently, and you bought one on Christmas Eve. Why?
Well, first of all, I'm not home very often, and so those were one of the few days that I was there. Second, I have a right to protect my family, and that's why I was previously a firearm holder as well. This was an additional one. And again, I think many Americans around the country feel the same way. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I have a right to protect my family if someone were to come after us. In fact, if ISIS were to visit us or our communities at any moment, the last line of defense between ISIS and my family is the ability that I have to protect my family from them or from a criminal or anyone else that seeks to do us harm.
Good response. Why'd you buy a gun? Because it's America. I have a right to a gun. What's your fucking deal with it? I mean, you even see this on police forums where they'll ask people, do you have access to guns? And it's like, the honest response to this is, it's America. I'm 18 or older. I can walk into a store and buy a gun. Of course I have access to a gun. How hard do I want to work to try to go and acquire one is a whole nother story. But what sort of moronic shit is this? So continue,
Millions of
Mr.
Americans
Rubio.
feel that way.
So he's not home very often. I don't know about you guys, but I really want to vote for someone who spends a lot of time with their spouse.
Yeah.
You know, Carly Fiorina spends a lot of time with her spouse. Apparently Marco Rubio doesn't do that.
I just imagine
kidding,
his
by the
kids
way.
like sitting around the tree like, when's Papa gonna be home? Sorry, he had to go get another gat.
Look at this. This is this nose in the air attitude. Oh my God, they couldn't have even waited 5 seconds to even try to come up with a normal rebuttal. It's immediately, oh, your family? You're not around your fucking family? You evil, awful, bad person. All the kids are at the tree weeping. Oh, I mean, look at and these guys call themselves newscasters. They are not. They're projecting their personally demented worldview upon Mark Rubio and trying to say, oh, this person bought a gun, so we know he's not taking care of his family, he's trying to fucking be president, you dicks. Like, what the fuck?
Here's your gun. Merry Christmas. Oh, thank you, Daddy.
He also...
Yeah, because that's an American thing to do, actually, and that's where this problem has arisen from, is because we don't have strong fathers teaching their children about firearm safety. In schools in Russia, you learn about guns in PE. You learn about it in class. The same way an American would take archery or something of that. They have firearm training because they're not petrified of a hunk of metal that shoots something out of it. I mean, these people make this into this monster of an issue when it's like, you know, these things have been around for hundreds of years. Surprise, surprise. Ugh.
He admitted that he was wrong in one of two ways. He said, I was previously a gun owner. This was just an additional one. So did you already have one now, in which case you didn't desperately need one on Christmas Eve? Or did you not have a gun, admitting that having a gun apparently has not been a priority to you, and you maybe aren't as fixated on the Second Amendment as you'd like us to think you are?
No,
See, whatever he says, I'm going to find a way to make him wrong, because in my head, he is a bad person for the sheer and simple fact that he has a gun.
Here's what I want to know. I want to know how it's now common knowledge that Marco Rubio bought a gun during Christmas Eve.
Of course, because they spread it.
It's because if he put out a press release about it, I mean, American politics is just completely in the gutter. Why?
It's common knowledge because douchebags like you talk about it like it's newsworthy.
Why would anyone put out that type of press release?
It's already in the gutter because that thing just happened that we just saw.
Yes. No, I know that.
Why did you buy that gun Christmas Eve? Because I'm running for the presidency and I think it'll help me. That's the only honest answer.
Look, I'm not in the business of...
Yeah. I mean, okay, first off, yeah, it probably was a publicity thing for president, but instead, you guys are putting all of this other context to it to make it seem like anything other than that. If it was actually that, then why didn't you just say, Marco Rubio bought a gun, it was a promo stop trying to show that he's pro-Second Amendment. End of story. You didn't have to bring his kids into it, you didn't have to mention his family, you didn't have to sensationalize it. You could have just said, Marco Rubio, promo stop, publicity, bought a gun, end of story.
Telling journalists what they can and can't ask. That was a perfectly fine question to be asked, but in this case, he's playing into Marco Rubio's ridiculous publicity stunt of, I'm a gun lover, hear me roar, I bought a gun during Christmas Eve. Dude, it's Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve. You're thinking about buying guns on Christmas Eve? You, Mr. Religious, I care about God, I care about family values. You're out buying a gun on Christmas Eve.
And here's the other problem, is that the leftists, and I have been setting up a whole other video about this, about how they try to manipulate religion, and none of them believe in religion. They're all atheists who believe in Darwin, and they like to look at piles of bones and make up stories about the bones, the same way they did hear about his kids. They'll say, well, this is a pile of bones, and from this pile of bones, we know the bones had children, because you can tell that from bones when you have this magical liberal power. And if anyone is guessing, that's sarcasm. You can't look at a pile of bones and know that it had any kids whatsoever. Scientifically impossible. It is a fantasy story that they are creating about a set of evidence or circumstances. The same way they're creating this story about Marco Rubio and his kids and everything like that. But they are trying to bend religion and say that, well, because he's a Christian, he should have no reason for a gun because he should be the ultimate pacifist. And that's a completely wrong idea. I've seen even posts, this whole idea, oh, well, if you kill a person, you're a killer yourself and you're no better than them. No, that's why we have a legal system that proves beyond reasonable doubt. We hold people accountable for crimes because good has to fight evil. I mean, aren't there famous quotes about all it takes for evil to succeed is for good people to sit back and do nothing? And this is the attitude they have all the time. Well, if you love religion, you should be sitting by and watching, and you should just be clutching your rosary and praying to God and hoping for divine intervention rather than doing anything. If someone breaks into your house, you better kneel down, piss on yourself, clutch that rosary, and wait for that bullet to go right through your fucking skull, rather than grabbing a gun and defending yourself. These people know nothing of religion, know nothing of the Bible. They have no idea that Jesus, in fact, went into a temple and was flipping fucking tables and whipping people because of something called usury, which is economic, predatory lending habits, basically. If Jesus was fucking flipping tables over predatory banking and lending practices, what do you think he'd be doing nowadays? I think he'd be arming to the teeth. I mean, you want to talk about context and projecting it onto nowadays, I think Jesus would be arming to the teeth. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I don't think he would be running around pointing guns at everyone's head saying, you better do what I say, or else, you're going to get locked up and everything like that. We have the government doing that, and the government hates religion because of this very idea that people should be able to take care of themselves and defend themselves, and you don't need a magical mystery savior government doing that, because people have already chosen their magical savior, and that is God. And God has a lot better set of morals attached to it than government.
How crazy is that? Look,
how crazy are you, bitch?
Yeah, that's if anyone were to have a gun, someone like Marco Rubio, in my opinion, is totally fine. I think his messaging is destructive. I think his messaging is dangerous. However, like going around and touting the fact that you bought a gun on Christmas Eve because it's going to work in your favor, it's going to give you some political gain, is so incredibly depressing.
Go ahead.
I think that every Christmas you should give your family the gift of an increased chance of one of them being accidentally shot.
What? It's a gift that
That's
never
what he just
stops.
gave his family. There's a chance that one of them is going to find the gun and accidentally shoot themselves, or his dog.
Yeah, if they're not taught what a gun is, how to properly handle it, and everything like that. I mean, let me tell you, I have nieces, right? I have one niece who has a father who is a gun owner and the most responsible person possible. She knows that guns are tools and not toys, and what they are meant for. She has a little BB gun. She's never shot anyone with it, never done anything like that, because she knows, she's been taught, she is respectful of the object. She knows its capabilities. It's not just a toy. And then I have another niece who lives with me and my family, and she doesn't get these same lessons. And this is the type of kid that will bounce a ball off someone's head, has no respect, and honestly, I would never want her near a handgun, because she's not taught what it is and how to be respectful and about consequence and everything. And let me tell you, these two children are complete and polar opposites. And that's the whole thing, where I mean,
Daughter's going to be walking through the house. He's going to think it's a burglar. He's going to shoot her in the neck like just happened. Or he's going to be cleaning the gun. And he's going to shoot his wife in the stomach. That happens all the time across America. And
it does not.
Marco Rubio just gave that to his family.
I mean, what says Christmas?
Let me ask. So why are we having? I mean, because this is the whole thing. His mindset is the gun is the danger, because the gun just, as you said, it just randomly shoots, bing, bing, through the pregnant stomach. Oh my God! So how come police are not having the same problem? How come you don't have, random police cars just crashing into things because the gun in the holster just shot off and went through the leg and fucked up his driving and military. How we were up in the helicopter going to the mission, and then someone's gun just magically discharged, bing, bang, boom, shot off, ricocheted, and we all crashed and died. It doesn't happen. This fantasy Candyland bullshit that these guys are trying to project onto everything is fucking sane.
Spirit more, the baby Jesus, universal love and acceptance, than a firearm.
And
really,
twisting of religion
thinking
again.
Of a lead going the speed of sound and going through someone else, like for Jesus. That's great. I'm against guns.
That's
so
great.
on Christmas Eve, I went out and I bought my family some brass knuckles. That's just for Christmas.
Yeah,
Last line of
you got
defense.
to be able to defend yourself
If
from
ISIS comes, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
kid, you take this fucking brass knuckle and you go up to the biggest motherfucking ISIS guy and you punch him right in the ball.
Right. And if you don't, you're a pussy.
You're right. Regressive.
Yeah, he hit two birds with one stone in that small segment of that.
All right, let's look. They're live right now. Let's.
Style lets you stand out from the herd. What's inside sets you apart. The 2016 Cadillac Escalade.
As Baby Scumbag on YouTube. Interesting.
Might be a clue.
And he's known for his skateboarding videos and also his videos where he approaches women and touches them without them even knowing who he is and without even getting permission from them.
I believe that's normally called sexual assault.
Right. But since he's a teenager, I think he got away with it for a while. Now, Steven Fernandez, whose nickname Baby Scumbag, is accused of luring a 12-year-old girl by promising to put her on a non-existent MTV special if she performs sex acts. Fernandez promised to introduce the girl to A-list performers and appear in Fernandez's non-existent MTV special in return for her engaging in sexual acts with not only Fernandez, but also his manager, Jose Barajas, and another person he works with, Keelan Lamar Dad, who's 27
Which
years
goes
old. So
on
Jose
in
Barajas
Hollywood, by
and
the way.
Keelan are both older. They're obviously not supposed to be having sex with minors. The third man, can we put that back up, please? The third man charged in the case and a fellow professional skater.
So that's Dad.
Yeah.
Okay, just making that story slightly creepier. So look, if this was a case between a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and it didn't involve anything else, it'd be like, wait a minute. I mean, you got to know the laws. I don't know if under a certain age it's illegal by any definition. Can a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old hook up? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So that one's a little complicated. And yeah, the kid does super questionable things. I mean, he goes up to women and touches them, and everybody gets a laugh out of it. And then since he's popular on Instagram, idiot girls will come and dance in their underwear in his videos. Okay, all that's okay. The sexual assault's wrong. The girls dancing in their underwear, God bless. That's America, right? But to me, the real problem is the older guys. I mean, so this kid's a 15-year-old. He started all this stuff when he was 12. 12-year-olds can be knuckleheads. Are they going to be going through puberty and really horny and doing really stupid stuff? Yeah. Okay, now it doesn't mean that they get to touch women. That's a different issue. But who's encouraging this guy? Who's teaching him, hey, it's okay to touch random women in sexual places when they didn't allow that?
Right.
Who's saying, hey, help us get a 12-year-old in a van? So to me, the adults in the story are much worse.
That's exactly right. I mean, first.
One of the things is I guess this is a story about some kid who obviously is a scumbag. And I mean, granted, if these guys pick the right story, they can do honest journalism, calling this kid a scumbag the same way I'm calling them scumbags. You know what's more of a news story is the fact that this goes on in Hollywood, though. And there are numerous women who will talk about it. You had Cara DeGuardio from American Idol. She's a songwriter. Kesha has recently come out and accused her producer, Dr. Luke, of very similar, fucking blow me and I'll give you a hit record type things. The casting couch idea. And it goes on. So when we want to ask ourselves, why would this child, who presumably has been influenced by media, Law and Order, SVU, puts out ideas to people. It's so evident in culture and society. I wouldn't say we have a rape culture, but rape is a tool of the powerful. And I have always mentioned this, when you hear the ideas of 50 Cent and Will Smith having gay sex with producers for roles and everything. And it makes a lot of sense to me in this way. If you're a multimillionaire and you are making someone else a multimillionaire, how do you establish dominance over that person to make them know that they are subservient and humble to you as the boss? Rape, sodomy, I mean, this is, again, ancient stuff that has gone on forever, and, you know, when we hear about it, we get appalled, and we're just kind of like, oh, how could this be? I mean, you know, I think of abortion the same way we have, you know, and if abortion was just what it was, and it didn't have this whole concept of being a woman's right, I mean, you could, instead of it being an R-I-G-H-T, we should look at it as a right, an R-I-T-E, as if it's this sacrament to the sun god, and we're like the Incans or the Mayas on top of the pyramid cutting out babies to sacrifice them to the sun god. That's what it becomes when women see it as, this is my right. It's a rite of passage for me to abort my child. It is this ancient systems that surface through society that some would say are devilish and satanic in nature or spirit, but they continually resurface, and it's just in different forms and different shapes. So let's not go with this live show thing, and this should be interesting, the worst answer in debate history. This fucking ad.
Style lets you stand out from the herd. What's inside sets you apart. The 2016 Cadillac Escalade.
On tonight's Final Judgment, we're going to be taking a look back at last night's debate and what might be one of the worst answers to a debate question that I've ever seen. When I mean worst, I mean most lacking in information, comprehension about the world, about the policies that affect the world. And when I say worst, I mean in history. Hillary Clinton's 9/11 thing was pretty bad, but this is worse. And not just in the way that most responses don't actually answer the question and avoid the actual issue. He so clearly doesn't know what he's talking about that it is delicious. And here I am, of course, talking about Donald Trump, responding to a question from Hugh Hewitt. Kudos to Hugh Hewitt for once again being able to be subversive enough to just ask a question that seems reasonable that proves Donald Trump doesn't know the first thing about politics or history or the world or anything. So the question was, what's your priority among our nuclear triad? Now, really fast, just in case it's been a while since you were in a class about this, the nuclear triad is a brief way to summarize our nuclear capability. The triad being that we...
Now, here's the wonderful hypocrisy of all this. He just got up here and said, here is this question that proves Donald Trump doesn't know anything about anything, period. Disregards how successful he is and everything like that. And then, though, he feels the need to explain to everyone else the actual question that he's accusing Donald Trump of not understanding. So, if the people who view this shit, the 1 million people who have seen this video, don't understand, is what he's saying is, you don't know anything about anything, and that's why I need to give you this extra information about this, because we're all going to chastise Donald Trump for not knowing this, what we don't know either. So that's why we need this background information. This is the pot calling the kettle black.
We have ground-based or silo-based missiles that we can fire that have nuclear weapons. We have our submarines that can fire nuclear weapons. And we have our intercontinental bombers that can drop nuclear bombs. That's the three things that our nuclear capability rests on. That was a very quick summary of what it is. See if you see any of that in this long-winded response. So Donald Trump says, well, first of all, I think we need somebody, absolutely, that we can trust, who is totally responsible, who really knows what he or she is doing. That is so powerful and so important and so irrelevant to the question that you were just asked. It has nothing to do with what you're being asked about. It's so powerful that you could trust your leader. Way to go, Donald Trump. And of course, you can't trust Hillary Clinton, you can't trust Barack Obama, you can trust him. Now, you can't trust him to know what the questioner is asking about. You can't trust him to have a good response. You can't trust him to actually even attempt to answer the question or to ask for more information, but you can trust him to divert your attention. One of the things that I'm frankly most proud of is that in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going into Iraq because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I called it. I called it very strongly, and it was very important. He said important again. The man does not know 4 adjectives.
Yes, but See, and here's the thing, why that does answer your question, is because if we had a president that wasn't gung-ho about war, the nuclear triad and his priority of which one he thinks is more important to shoot out a nuke out of is irrelevant, because we're not going to need nukes to be shooting anything. So, I mean, again, this guy's trying to make this point and bend and manipulate all the data he can. For him to say Donald Trump is an idiot, he knows nothing. He knows the people he's talking to also have no clue about the question either, but he's still trying to make Donald Trump seem wrong. Himself seems smart. He knows all the answer. He's the, I mean, these guys, I don't know why they're not running for office. They seem to think they have better answers than everyone for everything.
Importantly there, he threw in some dates. And what's interesting about saying that you called it in 2003, 2004, is you actually called it in 2004, about a year into the actual invasion of Iraq. So hardly like a predictive genius in Donald Trump, that about a year into our invasion, he thought, you know what, this might have some bad consequences. But understand that he's...
Maybe that's the first time he was publicly interviewed about it. I mean, he's not a politician. Why would he just... And this is the other main problem, is continually we look for people who don't know shit about what we're asking them to talk about. We ask for celebrities to give us their input on the geopolitical, racial, economic structure of the country. You know, Noam Chomsky is out here giving political advice to people. He's a linguist. He's not a politician. I mean, so this concept that we're just going to go and ask whoever questions about, you know, specific military shit. I almost feel more relieved that Donald Trump isn't all up on the nuclear triad and everything like that. He's got more important things to worry about. So,
saying that his understanding of that region was so special in comparison to the other politicians of the time that you should make him the commander-in-chief. And yet, he was very clear at that time that he was still going to support George W. Bush, despite the fact that in 2004, George W. Bush was still doubling and tripling down on the invasion of Iraq. So it was so important, but not important enough that you would support a different candidate, Donald Trump. He says, but we have, and now he's actually going to talk about nuclear weapons, so that's nice. But we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely careful when it comes to nuclear. Nuclear changes the whole ball game. You moron. You could have said nuclear weapons change the whole ball game. Nuclear proliferation changes the whole ball game. Nuclear capability changes the whole ball game. When it comes to nuclear, and in another section...
Oh my God. This guy is looking for things to try to give himself something to talk about. You know what he meant. Like, did you, like, and this is part of the problem, where we have these countries, they want to develop nuclear capabilities. They say they're going to use it for energy, but then we have to worry that they're going to harness that energy into a bomb. Nothing wrong with what he's saying.
Of the debate, he said, I'm going to be very tough on families. If your child spoke like this, you'd say, oh, no, hold on, we got to correct that if you're going to give this as some sort of speech or debate answer or anything like that. But for some reason, this 95-year-old man, it's perfectly acceptable when he talks like a particularly dim 5-year-old. That's fine. Frankly, I would have said get out of Syria.
What is he talking about? 95-year-old man talking like... Trump isn't 95. I mean, again, this is word vomit. Who is this reporter? Oh, my God.
Get out if we didn't have the power of weaponry today. Sarah Palin would be ashamed to speak like this. The power of weaponry today. And then, and this is amazing, I mean, I criticize constantly that he doesn't understand history. He says, the power is so massive that we can't just leave areas that 50 years ago or 75 years ago we wouldn't care. It was hand-to-hand combat. Well, that's another exciting inclusion of debates there, because what's great about 75 years ago is it's almost exactly when we dropped nuclear weapons on Japan. But he thinks that we were...
What does that have to do with the state of Iraq?
Literally fighting with swords and spears at that time. He doesn't know anything about even the history of the deployment of nuclear weapons, let alone the escalating risk of...
He's referring to Iraq was fighting and not having guns and fucking anti-aircraft missiles like John McCain gave them. Again, completely accurate in what he said. You may have an issue with his I's not being dotted and his T's not being crossed long enough for you, but that's what this is. This is desperate. Is pulling at straws. Did Afghanistan, Iraq, or any of those other countries have nuclear bombs 75 years ago? No, we did. And this is, again, this moving of the goalpost where he can say, Iraq didn't have the weaponry they had, we had it, and then this guy goes and says, well, 75 years ago, we had this weaponry then. Yeah, we did, and they didn't. That's why they were hand-to-hand combat.
Nuclear proliferation, or what we need to do to combat it. Or the fact that Syria is nowhere even close to getting nuclear weapons in God knows how many decades. He goes on to say, the biggest problem this world has today is not President Obama with global warming.
Actually, I just saw a thing where ISIS was out saying in Syria that they have enough money to just buy a nuke. So this idea that they don't, keep telling yourself that, buddy.
Which is good because you weren't asked about that, but feel free to blather about it, which is inconceivable. This is what he's saying. So what is inconceivable? That there will be global warming? You've admitted in the past that there's global warming. You don't even know your position on global warming, let alone on the nuclear triad, which you, again, still have not actually addressed. The biggest problem we have is nuclear, again, going back to that terminology, nuclear proliferation and having some maniacs. So good, he knows what that is. Having some madman go out and get a nuclear weapon, that's, in my opinion, that is the single biggest problem that our country faces right now. But you were not asked what the biggest problem is. You asked which aspect of the nuclear triad you would focus on. Hugh Hewitt, who's a fairly detestable human being, actually has a follow-up question. Of the three legs of the triad, though, so do you have a priority? I want to go to Senator Rubio after that and ask him. Donald Trump. I think for me, nuclear is just the power. The devastation is very important to me. Which would make kind of a cool haiku, but a terrible answer for a presidential contender to give in a debate. He doesn't know anything about nuclear weapons, about Syria, about foreign policy in general. And
what do you want him to build a nuclear bomb for you? What is your level of requirement? Does the president need to build the bombs themselves for you? Or do they just need to know when and where to use them? Because I think that's what he's saying. He's saying, I'll know when and where to use them. You can trust that I'm not going to, the devastation that they cause, I'm not going to just willy-nilly let off a nuke or two. But that's not a good enough answer for this guy. This guy wants Trump building the bombs at all three legs of the triad and doing the whole nine. Let's go to this one. I hate this guy. I saw another thing where they were going after Gavin McInnes, and Gavin made the remark about Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a fucking quack scientist. He's full of shit all the time. Astrophysics is all full of shit. It's a bunch of Star Wars geeks putting math equation to their fucking crazy ideas. Black holes have never been proven. They are theoretical. All of this stuff is theoretical. And Gavin McInnes points that out, and he says, but white liberals love this guy so much, he would let them defecate on him. And this guy obviously took personal offense to it, because he's just going and saying things like, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson's just trying to inspire people to think about our world, and he's a good guy, and, you know, this is unfair. I wouldn't let him defecate on me. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson is the same guy that said the Earth is shaped like a pear. And you wonder why people are wondering about the flat Earth now. Well, because you had this scientist you all worship come out and say the Earth is shaped like a pear, and NASA keeps putting out pictures of the blue marble. So someone's full of shit. You can choose NASA or Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I still bet you let Neil deGrasse Tyson take a dump on your chest.
Why do we vacation? That's why.
We go to the Miss USA competition. Carrie Preshon is representing California. Woot to the woot. Except not so well. A little bit of a controversy ensues because she got a question from Perez Hilton, who was one of the judges. Well, let's watch.
California, Carrie Preshon. All right, you know what to do. Your question comes from judge number 8, Perez Hilton.
Are we worried? you should be.
Vermont recently became the 4th state to legalize same-sex marriage. Do you think every state should follow suit? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's great that Americans are able to choose one or the other. We live in a land that you can choose same-sex marriage or opposite marriage. And you know what? In my country and in my family, I think that I believe that a marriage should be between a man and a woman. No offense to anybody out there, but that's how I was raised, and that's how I think that it should be between a man and a woman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Perez did not look pleased in that last shot. Did you see that? Later on his blog, he called her a dumb bitch.
And this is the whole thing. This is the people who go around and say tolerance, tolerance, accept everyone and love everyone, tolerance, and then the moment someone says something contrary to what they believe, you're a dumb bitch, you're a bad person, you're an evil, mean man. Like, I mean, this is this whole attitude where it's like, this group that claims they love diversity so much hates diversity. They hate anything that's different than what they think. Look at Stacey Dash this week. You had a black girl come out, and again, it's this whole mentality of, well, you're a traitor because you were on BET and you got a paycheck from BET, so how dare could you ever say anything bad about them? They are your master. You were on their plantation. Don't make them have to break out the whip, Miss Dash.
Part of the answer was, in my country and in my family, I believe that.
What is it that I called them earlier? Condescending, arrogant douchebags? Let's let Chink continue to fulfill all of my descriptions of him.
Part of the answer was, in my country and in my family, I believe that. Apparently they're all taught to say, I believe that, as if that's some sort of authoritative, assertive answer or something. God. That was, I know they don't get a lot of time to answer, and that was kind of a tough question. It's a controversial issue. She could be damned if she does, damned if she doesn't. But come on, man, you got to have better answers than that. Opposite marriage? I didn't know I was in an opposite marriage. Okay, but now I know. I like opposite marriages because then there's what the Bible says. Well, she didn't say the Bible. She just said that was her values. So what's my thoughts on it? I think she's in a tough spot. Do I demand that everyone agree with me? And that so if you're going to be Miss USA, that you say you should have to say that gay marriage rocks? No, I'm going to go say that, yeah, look, that's her opinion. That's like her opinion, man. So I don't really, I prefer, of course, that she have the other opinion, right? But she's an American. We're Americans. We all have different points of view. I say let her go.
Well, here's the question. Do you think they should even ask her that question? It's the Miss America pageant. Is it future politicians or maybe policymakers pageant?
Well, I have two answers to that. And one is abso-frickin-lutely. Ask her those questions. In fact, they should ask them real questions, not like what are they. How do you help?
And this is what I said. Well, because these are the morons that get their global warming info from children, or their advice on global warming from Coco the monkey going, me and bad, and this is so yeah, it's perfectly normal. Ask Miss America about her ideas about foreign policy, and why didn't we ask Miss America about the nuclear triad? That's what they should do. Ask her all the questions, because it gives you guys fuel to make yourselves seem like you're so smart and you are these, grand holders of wisdom, and it's your job to judge and persecute and point fingers at everyone and say, well, that one's stupid and that one's mean and he hurt my feelings, and yeah.
The children of the world. Well, I think the children are the most important thing. And, no, ask them real questions. Let's go balls to the wall, okay? What do you think about Obama's tax policy on taxing the top 5% a little bit more, but the bottom 95% a little less? Okay, you don't even have to get too specific. Oh, they'd be like, I believe that, such as, in my country, opposites rock. Okay, I mean, they'd be deer in the headlights. Then we're having a real conversation with the real questions. Now, that's the yes part. What's the no part? The no part is, Oh, come on. Who cares what they think? Okay, they're there to be pretty. That's
You
the whole
do,
point of the
because it
competition.
gives you
This isn't,
shit to talk about.
Miss USA combined with
It
Miss
makes you
SAT.
feel better about
Okay,
yourself.
And I don't really care how smart they are. I do if that's a
No,
in
you
a
hope
different
they're
context.
not, because it makes
You see what
you
I'm
feel
saying?
smarter.
Like if you're having Miss SAT, then I want them to be really smart. Is there such a thing? Maybe there should be. But Miss USA, I don't really care. And she was pretty hot. She came in second.
Let's see. They have a lot of stuff about homosexuality, which I guess that's why
This is Jay
Pastor
Severin from
J. David Manning
WKKK in Boston
tried to say that they were.
Reasonable Republican.
What you're about to hear is nowhere near acceptable. As Ben pointed out, we
No,
defended
so
Diamonds.
I was going to say, you can't defend. I'd fire him now.
All right, so what is that bad?
Have you ever heard the word he used that begins with a C and ends with an onions?
Yes. Oh, no, I have not.
It's a great word. Get ready for the best word you've maybe heard, certainly this week.
All right, Jay Severin, here you go.
We're talking about illegal immigration. So now, in addition to venereal disease and the other leading exports of Mexico, women with mustaches and VD, now we have swine flu. But now it's too late to do anything at the borders because, of course, we didn't do anything. So now it's too late to do anything. And when we are the magnet for primitives around the world, and it's not the primitives' fault, by the way. I'm not blaming them for being primitives. I'm merely observing they are primitives. And when you...
Notice the date, May 1st, 2009, and this is the same stuff that Ann Coulter has come out with, a whole book backing it, stats and everything. That's why when Donald Trump made the remark, he's not wrong. It's Mexico has high crime, high rates of incest and rape, and that's why the smart Mexicans try to leave. Like that, and people fail to get that. They look at these immigrants, and I don't know if maybe they all just think it's because they're glowing, shining personalities, and they have this whole let's get along and sing kumbaya mentality. But you got to think, Mexico has to have a problem if all of these Mexicans are trying to leave Mexico, right? You're not going to just leave because you want to leave. Like, it's a lot of work for most of them. So this bothers me, that whenever anyone points to the problems in Mexico, and it's the same thing when Donald Trump said it about Syria, and people go and say, well, how about instead of taking all of these people here and draining our welfare system and setting the scales off, how about we go to their homes and we try to fix up their home country, which is going on. Mexico's doing far better economically at this rate because jobs are moving over there. Then, they're getting manufacturing jobs while we're having service jobs. And because there's no manufacturing jobs here, no one can employ the people for the service jobs. So Mexico's winning, even despite the fact that some of them are still in a peasant culture type of mentality. There's nothing wrong with saying that. The problem is that you have these people on the left who think that you will be able to uplift people out of a certain level of mentality or state of being without them having to change their culture. And the way they do that is with handouts, with government handouts. Instead of going to them and saying, hey, keep your religion, keep your ideologies, just kind of tweak this, and that, and you'll be as successful and prosperous as us. They go, no. You stay just the way you are. Keep doing everything as if it was, like 300, 400 years ago. Stay doing things the way you are, because there's this mean old rich man, Scrooge McDuck, and we're going to go after him, and we're going to take his money, and we're just going to give it to you. And then we're going to pretend like we're Robin Hood and have this whole pompous little dance about how we're going after these things. And this bothers me a lot. And I'm going to say this. This whole mentality of go after the rich, go after the 1%. Let me tell you, the reason they're rich and the reason they're the 1% is because they are fucking smarter than you. You cannot go after them and get their money and chase them down because they will move. They will move somewhere and they will take their money and their wealth with them. And there goes this whole plan. The The whole Bernie Sanders idea is this idea that we are going to enslave the 1%, because you basically have to say, well, you're not leaving. What makes you think they're not going to move? They're rich. They probably have homes elsewhere anyway. I mean, it's this childish ideas.
Scoop up some of the world's lowest of primitives in poor Mexico and drop it down in the middle of the United States. Poor, without skills, without language, not share our culture, not share our hygiene, haven't been vaccinated. Look at all the things we take for granted. It's millions of leeches from a primitive country come here to leech off you. And with it, they are ruining the schools, the hospitals, and a lot of life in America. Now, at this particular moment in history, they are exporting to us a rather more active form of disease, which is the swine flu. California, and middle-class people are fleeing California in droves to get away from the criminalians, as we know. The governor has declared a state of emergency because of the disease. Hundreds of kids are sick. It says many hundreds of students are sick in New York City schools from this, all of them because of Mexicans. We should be, if anything, surprised that Mexico has not visited upon us poxes of more various and serious types already, considering the number of criminalians already here.
Criminalians. He said it. He actually pronounced it twice. He went with criminalians the first time, and then just criminalians the second time.
Now, we've done a lot of terrible clips on this show. Michael Savage does it day in and day out, and the Limbaughs and the Becks, etc. But I have to say, I don't think I've heard anything this bad ever. And I'll tell you why. The criminalien stuff is so stupid.
And here's the thing. Now, granted, I'm doing a video on these guys, but I'm a no-name YouTuber. Notice how Glenn Beck, Limbaugh, Savage, and all of them rarely do pieces on these people. And there's a reason for that. Because the facts aren't on their side. And that's why they don't have to mention them. They don't have to drag them out and say, look at this mean old man being a bully, mean white guy. He's so mean to the poor little Mexicans and their quaint little peasant culture. And that's why they don't have to bring them out and do these character and personal attacks, because the facts are on their side. They can just go on the radio and report the facts, and it backs up what they're saying. It doesn't back up their point, which is why they have to continually take people out and personally attack them. So, continue your personal attack.
It's almost funny.
It's almost amusing. Yeah.
Right. And you know what? At least there he's being a little bit more specific, referring to the illegal aliens coming in. And I actually have the least amount of problem with that word.
Mm-hmm. Although he's suggesting that every Mexican who's here is a criminal.
Yes, I understand that.
By nature of illegal immigration, yes, they are. I mean, and this is the craziest thing I don't get. The same people who complain about police brutality encourage criminality, which then leads to police brutality. Am I the only one that gets that? Like, if you want to cut down on police brutality, stop telling black people that they're never going to get anywhere in life and they might as well have an illegal job selling drugs because the man's going to keep them down everywhere else, because that encourages black people to do an activity that is going to get them arrested. Look at Rick Ross, the rapper. He was a former CO. Now what does he do? He encourages people to go out and sell drugs so that his CO buddies can stay employed. Look at this. I mean, it's, illegal aliens. Why would they be criminals? Oh, because by the very definition of coming here illegally. And this is so awful. Like, if you were ever to put it to someone in a common sense way and say, we're going to take 50 people who either came here illegally, undocumented, they're signing up for benefits and everything like that, or we can take 50 people from all over the world who are doctors, lawyers, inventors, businessmen, and which group would you rather have? The one that costs or the one that's going to produce gains? the one that produces gains. And by that very common sense way of looking at things, they then say, well, then you're a racist. You must be a racist because you don't want the peasant poor people. You only want sophisticated people. And I mean, granted, it could be, and here's the thing people don't get. If there were less of this one group, they're from Mexico because Mexico's right next to us. We don't have this problem with Canadians just kind of sneaking in and everything like that. But if we didn't have that issue, we could then take in so many more people from everywhere else. There would actually be diversity. And you don't see it. You see, because of the whole thing where we give the Hispanics everything in their own language, it creates a ghetto. It isolates them. And it's why it does strain the school systems, because now instead of just teaching everyone all at once, you have to get this other group caught up on a whole nother language.
And, that by itself, you can have a good open debate as to whether he should be suspended or fired, et cetera, et cetera.
But I agree. It's actually it is among the least offensive, and offensive is not the right word. It's among the least sort of outrageously scandalous things that he said.
And in that debate,
Now, I will say, at least in 2009, like this guy said, it's outrageous. It's not racist. I mean, I wish that the people of nowadays that are calling everything racist actually lived in the civil rights movement, because I feel like if you saw someone getting fucking knocked over by a water hose or lynched in the streets, you would think twice about calling 6 girls standing for a picture where their shirts spell out a word racist. That's a silly joke. That's a prank. That's not racist. Racist has to be kind of offensive, but they've changed the definition to where it's now power and privilege and everything like that. And I just wonder, what power do any of these people have over anything? Those 6 girls probably, the only thing they have power over is how much makeup they're going to put on their face in the morning. They don't have power. They're high school girls. What the hell?
Probably come out on the side of not firing him for saying that because he's referring to illegal aliens and he can make a case.
And it's moderately clever.
Yeah,
I mean, just
awkward.
Just as wordplay.
Now, see, and that's where the fact that they are actual racists really kind of permeates through.
Now, when he got into the hygiene of the Mexicans and then the VD and the
women with VD, that's Mexico's biggest export, is what he said.
If he had done just the mustache joke, I chalk it up to a joke.
Bad joke, right? Sure, I don't fire people for bad
but
jokes.
I'm still not haven't lost them. But then he got to the third level, at which point, it went way beyond acceptable, describing them as leeches, and then, of course, the primitives.
The primitives.
When he started talking about the primitives, I got so angry. And you know what? The thing that makes me even sicker is this guy, I've been to these Tosha conventions and stuff. He'll go to those conventions, and he'll be treated as a hero, as a First Amendment martyr. Right now, he's been suspended by WTK.
Oh, they have suspended him.
They have suspended him. His lawyer is confident that he'll come back on air. But here's what I'm confident about. Whether he goes back on air at that station or not, somebody else will hire him for more money later because he's a First Amendment hero and he's a conservative, et cetera, and they will hire any conservative for any reason.
Yeah.
Now, but this...
Here's the thing. When people call these cultures primitive, it's because they have not gone through the societal changes that come with development and prosperity and everything like that. It's not like they're calling them cavemen. They're just saying they haven't advanced and westernized, and technological revolutions have not come to them yet. And again, that's why some of the people move to America, because they are trying to escape that. If things weren't like that where they're from, why wouldn't they just stay there? It's so ass backwards. And I can't even... I feel sick from this pompous fucking bullshit. This episode is over. But I just wanted to address these morons for a bit, and I hope they see this, and I hope they actually try honest journalism instead of this sensationalist, fucking insanely biased nonsense that they just spew over and over, and then they get so offended whenever anyone calls them on it. So, New World News Network, the Young Turks, suck a fucking dick.